Yeah, let's just let it go where it goes. Let's talk about Brown Mountain and Sasquatch. So we are live
on Table Full of Knives. Welcome. We have the one and only Jason Knight.
Hi.
You are the only Jason Knight. I asked Josh Morgan the same thing. I said, you are the only Josh Morgan, right?
There's other people with the same name.
Yeah.
But unfortunate for them, they have to live their own life and I have to live mine.
Live yours. So like,
maybe it's unfortunate for me. I like what I'm doing. I'm pretty happy with it.
I like you got a cool name. It really fits your. Did you change your name?
No, it was given. As far as we can find, the Knight family has been living in South Carolina since 1708, 9, 10, somewhere around in that area. Yeah.
In like the Charleston area.
Mm-hmm. Right in Harleyville, right in the Four Holes swamp area of Harleyville, South Carolina.
Heck yeah.
I grew up playing in a primeval forest.
A primeval, what does that mean?
The trees have never been cut.
Really?
Yeah, it's Francis by
cool.
the forest. And my cousins, they lived out on a farm which backed right up to it.
Yeah.
So we would wander back into that farm, play in the woods and look for arrowheads in the field, and just, it was wonderful. It was we never worried about snakes or anything. We were just worried about my cousin Brooke putting an ass whooping on us sometimes.
Brooke.
Yeah, we were worried about her.
It's a terrifying name.
She was pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
But she's wonderful, but she's
terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, she would she had a horse named Dusty, and she'd sit on the back of the horse. I remember one day she goes, "I'm a decade old, you little chumps. You guys, I'll whip y'all's butts." A little more harshly she said than that, but we'll leave it there. But I remember looking up like, I don't want to get whooped or run over by a horse or killed or whatever. But me and her got along great. Yeah. We, in fact, I hope she comes visit sometime. She hasn't been up here since I moved to the mountains.
Is she down there?
Yeah, Somerville. Yeah,
Somerville. What was your childhood like? What was your parents? Were they? Well,
I'll tell you another fun Brooke story.
Yes.
My dad would take us to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time we were going to the movies. We were traveling on a back road, Highway 178, somewhere around Ridgeville. My cousin Brooke's in the back seat, and I'm in the front. And I don't know what we were going to see. It was the early 80s. I'm going to say 81 or 2. And he was like, I wanted to tell you the truth, Jason. We found you out in a field.
Oh, no.
And he starts telling me this story, and my cousin Brooke goes, "Wait a minute, Uncle Mike, that's bullshit." She was only like 3 years older. He's like, "Uncle Mike, that's bullshit. I know you didn't find him in the field." But she could get away with saying stuff like that. I'm biting the inside of my cheek for some reason. But yeah, so I grew up down there. I'm going to say I loved it. I enjoyed growing up there. I mean, my mom was from New Jersey, so we would go to New Jersey.
Wow.
In the summertime sometimes and visit. My grandmother lived there, one of them anyway, and then I had cousins there. So it's kind of neat to just see something different. Didn't travel a lot when we were kids. I think we went to Florida one time to Epcot Center, which was incredible.
Yeah.
And they didn't have Star Wars stuff down there. The only thing I don't like about Epcot and Disney, it's all fake.
Yeah, it's all fake. Yeah.
But, when you're a kid, it's like going off-world. And so, I was pretty typical Generation X raised young fellow. Whatever they were doing in the house in the daytime, I wasn't allowed in the house. Don't come in the house until the sun goes down. In the house was punishment. And if you grew up in the 70s and 80s, people say, "Why'd y'all drink out of the water hose?" Well, because you weren't allowed in the house, And I had, so I lived on a street called Hutto Street, right across was John Street. And my grandmother lived down John Street in the house that my dad and his brother had grown up in. So I was always at my grandma's house. And as I was in high school, I didn't go to school there in that town anymore. I went to St. George, which was just different. It was a different town. Maybe a little lighter hearted.
Yeah.
But it was a good place to grow up. I didn't have a problem with it. And I didn't really have any idea to escape it until I met my wife. And then my wife, we were hanging out. I think I was 21. We'd been hanging out for a couple months, and all of a sudden she was my girlfriend. And as soon as she was my girlfriend, I was like, "You want to get married?" And she's like, "No, you got to get a job first. We can't just get married." And I was an artist, and I know I'm bouncing around, but I just did artwork. I did sculpt. I was into carving.
Really?
I taught myself how to carve. I had been trying to make knives since about 1987. Man. And I was going to this knife maker shop. I'm going to tell you studio later. Shop over in Walterboro. He's a great knife maker, really great knife maker, not a really great teacher of knife making.
But a good maker.
Oh, yeah, a great maker. And I was cutting out blades and drilling holes. Now, the funny thing is, later on, as I got to be kind of well known, I was trying to give him some credit. So I told one of his customers who wanted to buy a knife from me, and I said, yeah, I used to go to Mr. Bloop house. I'm not going to say his name because, I just don't need to. I'm not throwing shade on him or nothing, but I'm not also going to give him too much credit because he asked me not to.
Okay.
He don't want any, so whatever. And he told this guy, and the guy called me back. He told me he was going to sue me for telling that and trying to ride his coattails. And no. I was like, I was just trying to give you credit for what I learned from you. And he's like, you never did anything in my shop. You never came to my shop. You never cut knives out in my shop. You never drill holes. He paid me. I had paycheck stubs. My mom had them. You know what I mean? Like, okay, man, you're just crazy, and that's okay. You know, I mean, it's just the grinding dust.
That's a very odd thing.
And the micarta grinding, I guess. But my dad bought me my first grinder. He had won money in a pool game. He used to love to play pool. He's kind of a gambler and a little bit on the wild side, I guess. And he said, hey, I got $650. Let's buy that grinder. So he bought me a Bader
a lot of money back
grinder. Yeah, BM2. This was in 86 or 7.
Really?
Yep. And I fiddled around with it for a good long time. When Tristan was born in 1997, I saw this other maker. I'd been buying knives every year. I'd save up money. I'd buy a knife from George Herron. And he was like the master. Like
amazing.
Like if people think Bob Lovelace was great, George Herron was great-er. And a lot of the things that Lovelace did, I learned right out of George Herron's mouth. Like, well, lad, I told him how to do that, you know.
Yeah.
I told them how to mirror polish, you know, because they used to share ideas back in the day, and it was kind of a no-no, or solder guards or whatever. And that's controversial because both of them are dead, so I'm not going to get too much in it. But I love George. He was a great dude. He was a Korean War veteran and just stories and crazy stuff. But he could grind. He'd grind 60 knives in about 2 hours.
Kid.
You know, he could he just had it down, you know. And his knives they weren't over $200, but they were perfect. They were like, if you ever skin a deer, he made perfect hunting knives.
Really?
They were flawless in their finish, and they were flawless in their design because he used them, and he had feedback from all these other people who hunted deer and skinned deer all across South Carolina and everywhere in the world they've been now, you know. And I would get one, and then I remember talking to him, and I was kind of going after his style, which was highly finished and mirror finished hollow ground blades. But I had crazy ideas. I always had these crazy ideas. And I was like, what about making that? And he's like, oh, lad. And if you knew him, if anybody knew him, he'd always say, well, lad, I'll tell you. You know, he's like, you got to find your own way. And so that way was forging blades. Yeah. And so I had I didn't really abandon knife making. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was doing wood carving, which you can't sell. I couldn't sell anyway. I would make cool stuff. Like I'd carve an anatomically correct humpback whale pushing the baby to the surface. I mean, it was right on the money. I'd win awards for them at wood carving shows.
But just couldn't make
But nobody would buy that. They didn't know what they were looking at. They're like, oh, that's cute. What do you want for $150? I was like, yeah. I spent 75 hours on it. I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah. How old were you at this point?
I was in my 20s.
Really?
24 or 5, something like that. I was 25 in 97, I think. So I was working at a tire company, Gerald's Tires. Wonderful place. I just saw my friend Bill, who owns it, yesterday out in Shady Valley at the beginning of, we call it 421, the Snake. It was kind of cool seeing him. But that dude is a great inspiration as an example of a Christian, a believer, a dude. If you're sick and he prays for you, you're getting well, and that's it.
That's awesome.
He didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I was like, if Bill Watts prays for you, you are going to be healed, man.
That's awesome.
And he's cool, but he's one of those successful people who's done really well.
Yeah.
Will tell you exactly how to do it. And the funny thing I've learned is with successful people, and you hang out with them and you listen to them, you're going to be
successful.
And if you hang out with losers,
you're going to be a
loser.
Yeah, it's so true though.
Yeah,
like it doesn't really matter. Like if it goes with raising your kids too.
Oh yeah.
If you're a loser, your likelihood of your kids becoming losers is pretty high.
Yeah, pretty high. And it's weird. It's a simple formula. It's like a biblical formula anyway. Really, you know what I mean? You look at it, and it's like, you're gonna, if you're hanging out with a bunch of shady characters, you can't help it. You're gonna be a shady character. You can break free from that. But there's a powerful experience to be in the presence of wise men and women who have gone through the trials and tribulations and turmoils of raising children, doing a business, becoming autonomous. And one of the things that I notice about them is they share more than you can imagine. They're giving away more than they make.
Right.
And that is time and money.
Yep.
And one thing I know about the busiest people I've ever met, they always find time.
Always find time.
And anybody you ever talk to say, I'm too busy, they're too busy.
They don't manage their time. Like,
doing whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, nonsense. It's like, you ain't too busy. I know busy people. Yeah. That's just nonsense.
Kind of said we take the time to do the things that we care about.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, were you raised a Christian your whole life?
No.
Or what's that story?
Well, my grandma would take me to church at a Baptist church, but I never heard the gospel.
Yeah.
And we went to a bunch of different churches when I was a kid, and I remember going to Methodist church, and I had a youth group there. But I didn't know who Jesus was. I never heard of it. Nobody ever talked about it.
Oh my gosh.
It was like
all your whole childhood, nobody ever talked about Jesus.
Nope.
That's bizarre.
Nope. All the other stuff, all the churchiness and stuff, but no Jesus. No, like Jesus is the creator God.
Yeah.
Nobody said nothing about like he rose from the dead, and he died for your sins and rose from this. So it's cool, but he never heard the gospel.
Yeah.
And then when I was hanging out with my wife, I was really into some, it was a paganism, but it was more like, it was pantheism. It was like I was exploring the native part of my family heritage.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, so I would just go to powwows, and I would go to all these, and I was having a good time, and I was just kind of reading it in books, In my backyard, I had this big stone medicine wheel set up on the grid, and I kind of thought I was worshiping God, not like I wasn't worshiping spirits or anything, but I was like, I believe like there's a creator God. I don't know who he is. Mm-hmm. And then I would read crazy stuff like Carlos Castaneda, and I'd talk to her, and she goes, yeah, that's kind of wild, but let me tell you about this. And so it was really her who led me to being a believer, like knowing who Jesus is. And her dad kind of like, one day we were studying, he goes, well, you want to get baptized in water? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I like to do that, These guys were, I want, Jesus was, I want to be baptized in water too. So, So that was, I don't know what year that was. I don't remember. But a couple of years ago.
Pretty life-changing for you, though?
Yeah.
Like when you accepted Christ?
Oh, yeah. It was like nothing was easier, but it was just made more sense. Like there's a purpose here now. It's not just, the whole idea of the random
Right.
nonsense, insignificant. I remember Carl saying when I was a kid, I used to like billions and billions of light years away, and an insignificant small blue speck in the Milky Way galaxy. Well, that dispelled all those things for me. That means like this is a special creation created by God for him and for us as like a school, like a testing ground, like a place where like you're beginning your journey into eternity at that point.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's going to get easier, but be comforted because you're traveling now in the right direction.
Right.
So, and I've had a lot of bumps in the road, and
Sure.
you know, those everybody does, and that doesn't change anything if you can come through it. You know, you go through times where you're like, I don't know what God's doing. Or you can tell yourself lies and you'll believe the lies, and that'll ruin your life if you allow it. Yeah. So on and on from that. But
that's really awesome.
It made me see my knife making differently too. You know, I saw the whole idea of forging as this process of you're taking this perfectly good piece of steel and you're kind of reducing it by violence. It's like I'm gonna take this perfectly good piece of steel and forge it into this shape. And then I'm going to grind it, and then I'm going to polish it, and then I'm going to, you know, there's a Bible verse. It's like a forming a weapon fit for its work. It's in the Old Testament. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think it might be Ecclesiastes. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of cool stuff like that. And that's like an analogy for your life as a person of faith, you know, a follower of Jesus, whatever your denomination is. I don't really even care about that no more. You know what I mean? It's more important that you have that.
It's about Jesus.
You and the Creator God having that relationship.
Yeah, it is. So. It really is. It's interesting. I was raised my whole childhood. I was in church. I had excellent parents, and they really. I mean, even at my wild, it was kind of fun. I don't know what it actually instilled in me, but even at my wildest times in life, I believed God so much that I was too terrified to, you know, in a way, the fear of God was pretty like in front of my life.
Oh yeah.
You know, not in a bad way, but I knew right from wrong.
That's good.
You know,
yeah. I mean, I could convince myself at times that I didn't know right from wrong. It was not pleasant for my life. You know, this old man, he's kind of like my dad. He's just one of those old wise men, and he told me it's like sin has its built-in consequences. Like, you know, the wages of sin is death, but every one of them has a built-in consequence. It's really going to get you one way or the other. So yeah, it's kind of wild, man. You could you know, we go through cycles in our time of making things, and I was like, I'm at the end of one at the beginning of a new one, and I'm really happy that I'm at the end of this one because a good bit of it was pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
You know what I mean, like my Forge and Fire experience and stuff like that. And it really wasn't Forge and Fire's fault. It was really all my fault the way I worked it out, and it was just an ordeal, which I don't really want to chat about right now. That's for a book for later. But on that. The cool thing is it inspires people.
It does.
And that's all that I care that it does. It inspires people, and that's what's great about it. So, but you know, making knives and getting deeper and deeper into it, learning how to forge. I was at the tire shop and it was raining. And when you got a team. The coolest thing about Joe's is like it's brilliantly run with just enough guys to make it all work. So we're all busy all the time. There's nobody standing around with their hands in their pockets. You know, we're hopping. If it took 4 guys, we would just do 3 guys, and it ran better. And it was smart because when you got all these ADHD guys working in your company, you can't have them do nothing, you know. Especially now with these stupid phones. We didn't have phones like that back then.
It'd take your whole shop down.
Oh, boy. I would, if I had people working for me, I'd make them put their phone at the door, get it at lunch, and that's it, you know. But so it was raining. I think it was November. It might have been November in 2000. And I was out there wearing shorts and a rain jacket. Me and my boys were, it's raining. We're jacking up a car and taking the tires off, put them on, like team go. You know, like we wouldn't say no. You know, and that's, I mean, we would go into a restaurant with our uniform on, and people would buy us lunch or drinks. I mean, we were famous.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. You know, it still has that reputation. It's the best. There is not a better system. There is, and all these big ones are designed on that system. Like Discount Tire, I go there. Their system is set up just like Gerald's tires, and Gerald's invented it. You know, but point being, she said, "Hey, what do you want to do the rest of your life?" And I was 26 or 7. I was like, I want to make knives. I was like, I want to make knives. And she goes, okay, well, how do you do that? And give me a plan, and I'll fund you for a year. Now, I'll pay for whatever it costs. I'll help you get the tools you need. I had a grinder, and I'll fund it.
This your girlfriend?
My grandma.
Your grandma?
No, I was married.
You was married. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
me and Shelly were married, and Tristan was a little boy. He was,
wow.
How old was he?
So your grandma funded you for a year?
Yeah. He said 98, 99, 2000. He was like 5.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he was 4. Yeah, she funded me for a year, my grandmother. And so I went that in 2001 in February, I went to the American Bladesmith Society. They had a school in Texarkana. Well, in Texarkana. Above Hope, Arkansas, where President Bill Clinton is from, in this little town called Old Washington.
Old Washington.
And I drove out there, and I was listening to Michael Crichton's Timeline, which was terrifying. And this is the farthest I've ever driven by myself in my whole life. And I was having a blast. I have a bicycle. I always loved riding bicycles. I have a bicycle. I had a 1987 Toyota pickup truck. Had a brand new 22R. I had this totally rebuilt this truck. It was great, you know. I drove out. I remember getting there, and I was going to stay at the bunkhouse. And if anybody's been there to the school at Old Washington, it used to be this old schoolhouse past the biggest magnolia tree I've ever seen in my life. And it was definitely haunted. I walked in, I was like, hello, anybody here? And I could hear, I'm like, well, let me go see, somebody's upstairs. And I could hear a door downstairs. I'm like, I'm not staying here. I was the first person there. So I remember calling back home. I had a Motorola flip phone. Hey, I'm going to have to stay at the Super 8 because I'm not staying at the bunkhouse. It's haunted. So it was like $33 a night to stay at the Super 8. And I was like, it was fine. It worked out. Every morning I'd get up and I'd drive in, and I met this dude, Jim Rodabaugh, there, and we got to be buddies. I didn't like him right off the kick because he was hanging out with the teacher, who was Jay Hendrickson, who's a master bladesmith, wonderful, wonderful guy, a gentleman, a hunter, a knife maker, super cool dude. Him and his wife, Nancy, always been good to me. And Jim was there, and I'm like, I ain't gonna like this guy. And I remember I would wear glasses sometimes. I had a little bit of astigmatism, and I had long hair at the time, and I was wearing overalls for some reason. I don't know. But during class, I'd put my glasses on. I couldn't decide whether I could wear them or not. I'd wear them sometimes, and it worked, and sometimes I didn't. And he told me the same thing. He goes, I didn't like you, Poindexter-ass looking dude. I was like, I would scalped you back then. But, I would draw a knife. We built coal fires. They would coke up, and we were forging. Jay showed us how to do that. Jay Hendrickson. I said Hendrickson, right? I didn't want to say the other guy's name. And he just said, okay, guys, forge, here's what you do. And that was kind of cool because we were just at it for 2 weeks of banging on us. So I'd draw a knife, and then I'd forge that knife. And Rodabaugh was like, hey, man, how are you doing that? I was like, I'm just a sculptor. It was like easy. So he was making stuff smooth. And I was like, how are you making it smooth? He's like, oh, I'll show you. So we got along really well. And by the second week, we were hanging out and goofing off. And I remember we went to this place. It's called the Boll Weevil. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Oh, my God.
Kid across the Red River. It was in Texas because that county was a dry county, so we would go over there. And we got something called Baron Jaeger, or some kind of honey mead wine. Yeah. And I remember drinking this stuff and wandering around Old Washington, having a blast. And It was an interesting time. I loved that time. It was great. I haven't been there in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back next month because my friend Doug asked me to come. And it's kind of funny because I got my bladesmith master's in 2007. So there was a plaque there on the wall, and I was the 115th person in the history of the earth to get their master's rating. And that just means I understand the basic information of forging and making all kinds of knives. I don't be like, oh, I've arrived. I was like, oh, I just begun. You know?
Right.
And so I hadn't been there in a long time. And so on the list, it's got 4 other master bladesmiths, and then me, Doug Marcaida, and then Melissa Backwoods as special celebrity guests. And I told her, I'm a master bladesmith too. She goes, yeah, but that's different from what these guys are. I'm like, no, ma'am. I went to school right there. But they didn't put it on the list like that. I don't care. It don't really matter to me. I don't even tell people. You want to find out, go look it up. But that's a lot of talking on it and jumbled all up.
There's not a lot of master bladesmiths out there, are they? Is there over 200?
Not living.
Yeah.
Living, I propose, if you count active and living, eliminate the living and retired,
right?
You got way less than 100.
Yeah. Really?
Oh yeah, because a lot of the guys on the list, they're over 70, and it didn't take long to get over 50.
Sure.
And that's weird to me because I'm over 50. But anyway,
you said it, not me.
I know. It's just weird. Like I just try to keep in tune. Like I don't buy it. When somebody goes, oh, when I'm old, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you, especially if you're a boomer. Yeah. Like I don't want to hear your nonsense. I used to put the flags out with the World War II veterans. I don't want to hear baby boomer crybaby nonsense. I was like, I put flags out with the guys who were like, well, we're probably not going to make it home, but we did, so everything's cool.
Yeah, that's a. So you're a Gen Xer then.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So, while you were, how long did that school last? You said a couple.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then off to the races.
I got back home. I built a lean-to onto my wood carving shop. I bought a forge from NC Tool, which I still have right out there, and that's actually went around to some famous hands, and I let them use it. I had an anvil. I had a grinder. I made like 40 blades during this thing, so I just started grinding these things, and I was grinding knives and finishing knives. And the first show I went to was Blade Show Atlanta in 2001. Now, I'd been going to Blade Show as an attendee since it moved to Atlanta, I think, and that was in 1995. And I only missed it 1 year.
Really?
Which is 2018. And I missed it during COVID whenever they didn't have it. But anyway, so I took 18 knives to Blade Show. I sold everything. I had my own style already, kind of. I was already kind of doing my own style. By 2002, I had defined it. And then I just kept expressing it in different ways. I make fighters and boys, but I got a job working at Middleton Place, which is the oldest landscape gardens in America. And if you've seen any Revolutionary War movie, they film parts of Middleton down there. So I was the blacksmith there, and I was mostly making knives. I was using coal, but the coal was really bad, so I learned how to make charcoal. I'd make charcoal in big 55-gallon drum. I basically just took a barrel and filled it full of wood, put the lid on it and lit a fire under it, had holes in it, and it would just smolder it'd take about 2 days. And
really? It
was all charcoal, and I could melt steel with it. I learned how to forge weld. My friend Billy Ridgel showed me how to forge weld in that.
With charcoal?
With charcoal. And he goes, what is this? I'm like, it's charcoal. And he showed me how to forge weld right in it.
Wow.
So I learned from him. He was a farrier. Still is. He's 70-something now. But
really?
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. Cool.
So when you got out of school, were you a journeyman at that point? Were you considered?
No, I was an apprentice.
You're an apprentice?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to become a journeyman?
2 years.
2 years.
I didn't even care about it. I just wanted to make knives.
Did you kind of, were you successful at it? I mean, during those first couple years?
Oh, incredibly.
That's awesome.
I took a boat to another country, And then I took that boat apart and I built a bridge. And when I crossed that bridge, I burned that bridge.
Yep.
You know, and I wasn't going back.
Yep.
I was like, I tore the boat apart and burned a bridge.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I made no more options. I eliminated the options. It was like go back to work at the tire shop or get a job doing
it wasn't
something you don't want to do. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be a bladesmith. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. So I was striving because of being an artist. I'd see knives and I thought they were cool, but it wasn't what I wanted to make. So I was like, I would draw a lot. And one of the things I would draw, I would like 57 Chevys, you know, it was a cool car. And I would always draw these fins on these knives. And so that whole shark fin thing, yes, someone had done it. There was a guy named Rod Chappelle who had done some, but he had been passed on and like out of the knife making scene. You know, he was up from 70s and 80s timeline, and then doing sculpted guards instead of plate guards. So the forging style was unique and limited. And like to me, the rock stars of that thing was like Don Fogg and Steve Schwartz, because they were doing cool stuff. Like Steve was making all these crazy folders and mosaic Damascus and pictures in Damascus. Don Fogg was making anything he wanted to. He would take a Korean, like a down, it was just making peshkabahs and Middle Eastern stuff. And you know, and Bowie knives, everybody's make Bowie knives, but I want to say a real controversial thing about Bowie knives. Bowie knives are fantasy knives derived from the minds of English cutlers in the 1820s and 30s and 40s. And when they heard this story about James Bowie, who is a land swindler and not a good person, and his brother, and they made these legends of it, like so the knife could be anything, really. Yeah. Bowie knife could be anything,
but it's a fantasy knife.
It's a fantasy knife, and there are examples that we have that we know, like, okay, there's some pretty definitive, and we can have a lot of fun with it, but there is no specific Bowie knife. They look a lot like the old knife called the Sax or Scrama Sax that are from all the northern European countries. And I don't know why bladesmiths want to make one. They make the same ugly ass one every time. But there's some of them that are cool, and they won't make those.
You're going to get canceled.
Yeah, and you know what else? Customers don't like them.
Yeah. I don't like them.
I don't like them. Josh makes a cool one, but
it's not my thing.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not my thing.
I mean, it's kind of almost a boomer thing, though. Was it not? Like the Bowie knife?
Yeah, like, maybe. It's in. So like a lot of our history, this is controversial. We get it from television.
Yeah. That's where it comes from.
It's not true, but we buy it. We believe it, and it's garbage. Or we'll get it from high school history, which is also garbage, and a lot of college history, which is also garbage.
Yep.
And you want to find out something, you got to do your own research and really find out about it. You know, like, you know, when you think about Bowie knives and Jim Bowie and the Alamo, and the whole Mexican army was there. You know what both of them were scared of? Comanches.
Yeah.
The Mexican army and the Texans.
They're scared
of Comanches. Comanches whipped their ass forever until they got maybe, I think Quanah Parker was like, okay, let's just call this off and just be Texans now or whatever. I don't know, you know. So there's some great books you can read about. Empire of the Summer Moon is a great one if you want to read one about Comanches, and it's got some really good information in there about the latter. But anytime when someone's talking about the ancient world, where they have, you know, they're archaeologists or they're digging up something and examining it, what they're presenting is their opinion.
Right.
And not presenting, it's always silly when somebody says, you know, a fact about the old world is, well.
You don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. Nobody who was there, you know, unless you got some really good legal historical documentation, as in the case of Jesus, the Old Testament, you know, the New Testament. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of great documentation on that, you know, and it's pretty interesting. And I find it fascinating. You know, I find it all fascinating. There's a lot of great stuff, and you got to do your own research and have your opinion.
Right.
You know, have your opinion. Just like the stuff I'm talking about, this is my opinion.
I find his history is one of my favorite things, I think. But yeah, that click,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome. But the American, I guess because I like the bushcraft world a lot. The old, like the Nesmith stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's just so cool to me. Like as a kid, that's kind of what. Like I used to run a trap line and everything as a kid.
The Nesmuk and the Kephart. Well, these guys were woodsmen and they had great.
And the axes and
they had great stories.
Yeah. It was just kind of I don't know. I think so. I think what you said is so true though. Like what we see on TV, we just accept that as fact.
Yeah.
So many people do. It's like Star Wars. Star Wars took a bunch of World War II guns and, I mean, what's his name? He had an amazing imagination. Yeah, exactly. That was an old German pistol, wasn't it?
It was a Mauser, but
Mauser,
this is actually a DL-44 made by Blastech.
That's right.
It belongs to the captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Pretty awesome. I love.
You ever heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Yes.
Made a Kessel Run in 12 parts.
Yes.
You know, it's a measure of distance, not time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
I love Star Wars.
I saw it when it was new.
I love it.
Did
you see it when it came out?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, I had to be so mind blowing.
I mean,
because to me, it still is. George Lucas, like even like his the episode 3 was still, it's still amazing to me, like how he did it. It looks so good today. It looks so good.
So one of my favorite ones is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I thought that was so broad and so vast and so many different things. But if I could go back and change one thing, here's what I would do. When the Darth Maul showed up in, what was that? I don't even know what they were calling that one because it came out in '99. I would have had Darth Maul just lightsabering Jar Jar Binks and everybody on his planet pretty much, and then just he would have cut Ben Kenobi's leg off, and I really love Ben. It was like and nobody would have killed him. He would have just continued on as like this ultimate bad dude, you know what I mean? Like until Darth Vader shows up, and maybe Darth Vader kills Darth Maul, and that's how he becomes the Vader. But they didn't write it like that. They were trying to have this comic relief, and what would be better comic relief than a robot that makes and another one who knows everything? So why didn't they just keep that? That ruined it for me. But as we go on,
you didn't like episode 1.
I wasn't crazy about that.
I have to admit, as a kid, that was my favorite episode.
You like Jar Jar.
I did.
You sound so stupid.
It's so stupid. But I mean, I like the whole the pod racing.
Bad.
I just remember the pod racing.
Cool.
That was so cool.
Yeah, I thought that.
I loved it. I loved that whole thing. Jar Jar was kind of an idiot.
Yeah, I like that pod racing part.
But the pod racing part was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was neat.
As a kid, that was just like the coolest.
No, it was good. I mean, I liked it. I remember when we were looking for the other one. I was looking forward to come out was the Lord of the Rings when they produced that. I was like, wow, that was good. And the Hobbit was.
I like the books.
Oh, the book! I'm listening to it again right now. I'm listening to Lord of the Rings right now, and I listen to all the histories of the Tooks and how the Hobbits became. It's kind of I like.
It's so cool. I mean, Tolkien, just another world.
Oh yeah, he invented a language and a culture. It's kind of wild.
He created a whole creation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a creation. I loved it.
Pretty wild.
But
those are things that led to knife making for me too. Yeah. Like one of the biggest ones, probably the Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
What is that? Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, that guy's got a LS2 engine in it.
There you go.
He's got a 280Z from the 90s. It's
nice.
got a Corvette engine in it. Yeah. That movie, I remember going to it and seeing that Charlestown Landing Mall, and it was like the soundtrack and just like what an epically shot, filmed soundtrack movie. It was so badass. Schwarzenegger couldn't even talk. He was like, "Dah," he didn't even say nothing. But like, I love it. One of my favorite scenes is when he goes down and like the wolves are chasing him, and he's down in this cavern. You seen this thing?
It's been a long time.
Okay, and there's this like king. It's like he's just a skeleton with armor, and so if you know the story, there was this other Atlantean king named Kull, who Conan is descended from in the Robert E. Howard world, the Hyperborean world. And so this probably is King Kull on this throne and the swords laying across his lap. And Conan finds it and he bashes all the crud off of it and it's shiny. And he's like, it's all on now. So it's really cool. So it's called the Atlantean sword,
Yeah.
you know. And some people go, oh, that's Crom. I was like, no, Crom is just an idea. It's like it's not a stupid idea. It's just from the story, you know. It's like a made up god in the story. But and he's like, I don't even care. I don't even care whether you help me or not. Like, whatever. It's like, you're not a real god. So it's a cool story. I loved it. And that was they made one more, but I think they made it for like children. And I was certainly 10 years old in 1982 when it came out. I was 10 or 11 and I had no business being there, but my dad took me and he's like, don't look at this part. I was like, what's going on? What are they wrestling about? What is that dude wrestling that woman for? Yeah, that's what they're doing. Said, don't look at that. No, it was great. They didn't care. It was like, violence is fine. You know, we live in a world of violence. You're going to have to learn about violence.
Yeah. I don't think I ever saw the full movie. I think I've just seen clips of the movie.
I loved it. I'll still watch it. Yeah.
Did you ever take any like inspiration from that stuff and pull it into the knife?
Not from their designs,
yeah,
but from an artist named Frank Frazetta. A lot of my style is derived from his artwork. If you look at Frazetta was a fantasy artist, really famous 60s, 70s, 80s. Did a lot of album covers for a lot of different bands and stuff like Molly Hatchet, from the Death Dealer on it. That was one of his.
So he did
characters.
all that stuff?
Yeah, he did all those things.
Oh, cool.
But he came up with this whole, art was like, a lot of people's art was just kind of like a pose or a still shot, but he somehow made it look like it was like action. And motion and violence and sex and death and like it was metal, dude. This is this is heavy metal right here. This artwork goes, this is what it was. And he was a great artist, and he was one of my favorites to look at his work. I met his son, went to his museum one time.
Awesome.
He was passed on. But I still like really he inspired all the other guys that do this kind of stuff. They were inspired by Frazetta. Like he laid down these lines that you can't bypass. And that's an interesting story about design when someone lays down lines. Like it could be same thing with music. You listen to the way Johnny Cash would lay out things, or Waylon Jennings could sing, or any of these things. So once these lines are laid down, whether they're in art or music, it's very difficult to bypass them as an artist. So like for me, I laid down some lines in design. And with my friends, I share. Josh Morgan is one of them. I share with Josh, and he's welcome to use, and has his own thing, obviously, you know what I mean? But when I'm always cool for people to pick up those lines where I left them and do something else if they can. Now, if you make my exact knife and you go to a company and start having it produced, I'm going to stop that. But that's not right. Come up with your own design. Use the lines.
Right.
But, so in knife making, I'll give you an example. One of the things that was really popular in the early 2000s when I was trying to get my name out there was doing all this. I always call it quantum Damascus. People were doing. Steve Schwarzer is responsible for really helping this whole mosaics and pictures and stuff. That was something that he helped really develop. And I would see them, and then it would be like, let's just say, a Bowie knife, kind of not really a cool blade shape, but a crazy cool steel, and not really a great handle shape, but an incredible piece of ivory, and a plate guard and a ferrule that was engraved in gold inlaid. So it had a lot of bling and a lot of like wow materials, but it looked like a knife. Like there was a pianist and artist named Liberace back in the 70s. It would be like a knife for him. This is what I look at. It's like, that is too much going on in one location for me to tolerate looking at it. Like I can't look at your knife because the shapes I didn't care for. Like I just like, that's whoever made them. I'm not calling out a knife maker or anything. It's just the shapes weren't. It was trendy,
right?
And when you pile on every fancy thing, you can pile on like mosaic and engraving and gold inlay and purple, blue, green, and there's purple, blue, green ivory. It was like walrus ivory. It was just like, bleh.
Yep.
And they were getting, it was like $5,000-6,000 for those knives back
then. Yeah.
And after I'd got my master's rating, I was exploring making things black.
Really?
And I wanted to make steel black because I'd sand something. I was doing hamons on buoys and fighters and stuff a long time ago. And I saw Don Fogg do it at an event in 2001, and I was like, I'm going to do that too. So I wouldn't do it on Japanese stuff. I would do it on buoys and fighters and whatever. And I'd just do choji, and I'd do all the crazy stuff, and I'd make them pop, and I liked it. But they're fragile. And what I mean by fragile, the knife isn't fragile. The finish is fragile. As soon as you cut something or use it, it's scratching it all up, and you kind of losing it. So I was like, there got to be a better way. Or if you hand finish a carbon steel knife, it's like, wow, that's a nice, beautiful finish. But it's like, take a pistol, take a Glock, sandblast it, hand sand it, and make it all shiny, and now keep it shiny.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. So I was like, how do I get these things? So I had met a guy that worked for Purdy Shotguns. He was a salesman, and he had worked in the factory, and I didn't even know what Purdy's were. And I said, how do they get that really dark black finish? He goes, well, Jason, I'll explain to you, lad. And he basically said, we spray an agent upon the barrels, and then we set them out of doors. And I was like, an agent out of doors? And my mind was going crazy. I was like, and I was dressed as somebody wearing a trench coat and being outside. And I'm like, what did he just say to me? An agent? I was like, you mean like a chemical? Yes, an agent. Oh, you mean outside? Yes, out of doors. I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, and then they would cart it off with an iron brush, an iron bristled brush, which I was like, I'm visioning another thing. Brownell sells iron bristled brushes, but I was using steel wool, and I would do that. So what I did is I figured out how to spray different chemicals on a steel and make it rust, and it looked terrible. And then I'd rub it off, and then the real veal was black metal. It was dark. It was like, whoa. And I would do them, and he said, just do it more and more, and it'll build up. So I would take me 48 hours or so to get, I'd do several coats of this on it, and I'd get them. The first ones I did, I mean, they were like that, this color, And I thought it was awesome. And I remember telling somebody, like, I want to do a black knife with a fuller, black guard, just metal, and in micarta. Because Bob Lovelace, he was still alive, he could sell a Big Bear fighter with micarta and stainless. He's like $25 worth of materials, and he's getting $25,000 for the knife. And I'm like, I can get $5,000 for it. And I wasn't being a smart ass. I was just being like, I know how to do it. So I did this sub-hilt fighter, and I should have had better photographs, but it was like beautiful. And then I had people going, wow, that was like theme music. This knife had theme music. And there was a purveyor at the time who I respected, but I didn't like. And then after this, I lost my respect I had for him, because the idea of what do you want outside?
Looks like it.
I have to wait. You're going to have to wait, dog. I was dealing with a customer from England who wanted it. And he was dealing with the customer from England who wanted it. And I was going to sell it to Les for $2,500, and Les told him it was $5,000. So he called me up and he said, Jason, Les is going to charge $5,000. What if I give you $5,000 for it? You just send it straight to me. And I'm like, that's awesome. And so I did it, and I got $5,000 for the knife. And this dude was mad, but that was already my customer, and he was like not a new customer. And he just called me. He's like, hey, why am I dealing with him? I can just deal straight with you. And his job was to get new customers, not steal my customers, so. Anyway, he was always doing that, and I found out later on, like, he was always like, I'd give him 30%. If the knife was $1,000, I'd give him 30% off, and then he'd take the knife and sell it for $1,800 after he had given me $750 for it. Whatever. It was just, I was like, that's not how you do this, man.
No.
And so I just didn't trust him no more. I have no respect for him, and I don't want any bad or harm to him. Sure, I just don't have to deal with him no more. Yeah. Like, you go your way, I'll go my way. We don't have to say hi, be friends or nothing. Yep. Forgiven, forgotten, out of the picture. Good.
We better take a break.
Yeah, we gotta let this dog out.
Daisy she is like somebody.
She will pee right on the floor. It's not like she cares.
She cares right now.
She thinks she does.
All right, we'll take a break.
All right. Okay, so there's two things about being a bladesmith and being a fairly recognized, hopefully for my work. Yeah. I knew I was pretty famous from what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So let's backtrack for a second. I was talking about making this knife. And before that, I had been doing the kukris a little while. I think this was like 2010 when I'd done this knife. And then the kukris I was really making in 11 and 12. And I was doing them same way, black fullers, just like people would see it and die. You know, they're like, whoa, you know, it was crazy. And that was a good, different, you know, it was like a new fest because previously I was making this certain style of a recurve fighter. It was like a recurve race. You know, like everyone does this knife now. And what's kind of cool is when I'll see new makers, they'll be making it. It's the knife I made, 15 years or so ago, and they're doing it. I'm like, you're almost hitting the lines. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, let me show you. And I show them. Like, I'll draw. I was like, if you did that, then you'll nail it. And they're like, I invented that. But I'm happy like I said, I'm happy to share. I don't go around and say, don't do my knife or don't make my design. It's like, now you can't. Mm-hmm. There are lines that you can't pass. Once they've been produced, it's like, now why did I put that in there? Well, no one was teaching me how to design anything. I already knew what I liked. I was influenced by Art Deco and Art Nouveau and Bugattis and Ferraris and curvy cars. I'm not necessarily a Lamborghini fan because they weren't super curvy. They were interesting and I appreciate it, but I like curvy cars and like motorcycles and birds and stuff like that. Like all these, they just got beautiful lines.
Right.
So I wanted to be on my knife, and with the whole Frazetta thing, action and motion. What that led me to is once I got my master's, I lost my interest in the idea of the perfect fits and finishes. I was like, that is a moot point on a piece of something. And I saw this dagger, this Rodrigo Sefredo, who's a master and a really influential maker in our time. And if you're a bladesmith and you don't know who Rodrigo Sefredo is, let me tell you what. It's just like saying, I don't know who Don Fogg is, or I don't know who, don't know me, or whatever. It's like ignorance is disgusting looking on a knife maker, especially a new maker who has access to the internet and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you act like you don't know who the other guy is and you're doing their knives,
there's no excuse.
You're ignorant and you look ignorant and now you sound ignorant. So you haven't, hey, go fix that. You know, I did not get accused of that because I was very respectful to people who didn't even deserve being respected. I gave them respect anyway because I was like, I don't care if you think I'm stupid, but I'm not going to be ignorant.
Right.
So, and that sounds weird, right? Because most people are ignorant anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, stupid is one thing that I probably am still. But when you're looking at knives, you're looking at design, just like this, You know why switchblades are so hot right now? Because Marfion reinvented them. He reinvented them. All the out fronts, like he made that hot.
He made it accessible.
He made it accessible, yeah. And they were just like, it's like this is about the most high tech pocket knife you could purchase. There's not.
It's like if you every time I pull this out of my pocket, somebody's like, is that legal?
Yeah.
Like, you know what?
If you get a Microtech, like a Combat Trodon, or you get one of those,
and they
like,
clunk.
Poof.
Yeah, they're like clunk.
Yeah, it's like that makes you smile.
It does.
It's like having full auto anytime you want.
I know.
So a lot of shout out to that dude. He's a genius.
He is a genius. And boy, his son.
Oh yeah,
Junior. Like,
he's a genius too.
Like, golly dang, man. I've got a couple Damascus folder that I just can't bring myself to list for sale, which is terrible.
Yeah.
But it's from Blade Show like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And it was squirreled away when I bought Ridge Runner.
Yeah.
Squirreled away in the back, and it just brings me my smile.
I know where two very exotic custom shop folders are. They're in my friend's the Tactical Elements inventory. One has got the Bertie Redivier Dragon Scale Damascus, and the other one's one of these mirror polished ones. And the cool thing about Microtech mirror polished. There's no buffer touching that.
Does he hand polish all that?
They're hand polished. However mystical, magical way he does it.
That's amazing.
But they don't use a buffer like you think they don't use that. It's a hand. And when you look at it, it's like it's a flawless mirror polish. It's like it's just gorgeous. It's a stunning thing. And that whole thing going back to the Heron style. Heron knives were flawlessly mirror polished for the most part.
Yep.
And that style came from an era of cars, which we will never see again, when cars were hand forged into beautiful shapes, whether it was a Ford or a Chevy or a Dodge or whatever, and they had real chrome finished, bumpers and stuff. It's like,
we'll never see that again.
You'll never see it again. It was incredible age of automotive stuff, and they weren't complicated. They had simple engines and simple ignition systems, and it was just wonderful, beautiful stuff. The time I was talking to Tristan about this earlier this morning, like when I bring up Bugattis. Bugatti's like a $5 million car, but back in the 30s, they were doing these hand forged aluminum bodies with these V12 and these crazy horsepower and just wild stuff these cars had, and they were very futuristic. And then World War II happened, and then that all went away. It didn't cars started to get that that futurism, that atomic age car in the 50s again. But
it's funny, the war really just stopped car. Like before the war, there was that kind of stuff happening, and then it just stopped for like 30 years.
Yeah,
it was just nothing.
Killed all the American motorcycle manufacturing. All died after.
Did
because Harley Davidson and Indian, and then Indian died in I think 48 or something like that.
Would they die again in the 70s?
They would come back up, but now they ain't never going
now.
nowhere. Yeah, Polaris is doing a great job.
You ever rode one of those?
I had one. I had a Scout Bobber, which was the first new motorcycle I ever bought. Now I love motorcycles.
Yeah,
and I had a scooter. My grandma bought me a Honda 80, but my mom wouldn't let me have it. So some other dork in town got it, and he ran it off into a pond or something terrible. And
oh no.
I remember this is how they coerced me, and I wanted to quit school. I hated school. It was a waste of my time and my effort and my energy. Yep. And I remember I'd be drawing in there.
I bet you were a great student.
Oh, Mr. Knight, why don't you come and sit in the back of the class where Mr. Jackson is? Mr. Jackson, why don't you come to the front of the class and sit up here? Because Mr. Knight don't want to learn nothing about history. He just wants to draw pictures and sleep. I'd be like, all right. I just got a free ticket to sleep and draw pictures. All right. So I ended up going to summer school for that, which was fine. But I hated school. I would have quit school.
I was homeschooled, and I still hated it.
Yeah. Our kids were homeschooled. And everybody's like, your kids are going to be socially ignorant. Yeah, really?
My attention span, man. I couldn't do it.
Oh, that was for me. It was so boring to me. I was like, I'm so bored with this. This is public, private, whatever. The system is the same trash over and over and over and over until you're in 12th grade.
Yeah.
You can read, then read everything. As soon as my daughter could read, she read everything. My son read everything. Everything I gave them. They read the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. They read I let them read, and I made them read stuff. I was like, this is important. They read On Killing. I made them read these things. Like, these are things to read. You'll learn them a lot more by reading this, and then read some science fiction, read some other tales. But
that's all I did.
That's how you learn. It's like, you're not going to be carrying around a computer in your pocket that'll tell you the square root of 2 or 3. Oh, yes, I am.
Not only it will talk to me.
I like something Elon Musk said. He was kind of slamming on universities right now because same thing. They want money.
Oh yeah.
And I get it. It's not necessarily. There are things that you go to school to be educated in. If you want to be an orthopedic surgeon,
sure. Well, we want you to go.
My friend Dan, he's like, here's the progression, and it takes this much time, and this is exactly what you do, and you do that, and you'll be an orthopedic surgeon. But like when you want to be an artist,
do not go to school.
What are you going to do? What do? You go to So people, we have school and we teach. But I'm teaching ideas more than I'm like a technique, really. But
They don't want. I mean, the problem I see with going to school for art is you will never be able to be an artist.
No, you end up going to school to teach at a college.
Yeah. Well, you'll never be. You can't be an art. I mean, you can't pay the school loans back.
No. Well, that's what I remember. All these kids. I used to. One time, I was running the college age youth group Bible study class, and they would come out and be like, "Oh yeah, I got all this debt from college." I'm like, "Huh?" I was like, "A Christian college having debt?"
Yeah.
I was like, I hope that school burns to the ground. You know what I mean? Like, I literally, that sounds harsh, but like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. But if that's your thing, if you have a Christian college where you're going there to study Hebrew and Greek and the Bible, and you're going to come on, you're going to be a minister, you're going to be whatever you're going to do. And he comes, I got $150,000 worth of debt from Christian college. Like, I hope your damn school burns down.
Yep.
I just think it's stupid.
It is stupid, and I think people are catching on. Hopefully, I hope they are.
That's harsh.
It's not harsh. It's it's nicer than I am about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just There's a whole generation. Oh, Scout. There's a whole generation of people that's like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, what are you going to do with all that?
Well, they're making us into... There's a lot of things I could say, and it's all controversial, but like, this continent of North America was inhabited by people for thousands of years before anyone from Europe came here. And that all of those cultures, all of those kingdoms experienced a true genocide.
Yeah.
Now, that is the true history of it. Now, face the facts is no one's going back and changing that, but here's where we are. Now, we as people of different faiths, of different colors, we're all the same race in my mind, but the point being is we have these struggles and these divisions, and the dividers want to divide us against each other. And no one comes together over the differences. They come together over their commonalities. Like, that's the cool thing about bladesmithing and blacksmithing and knife making. I don't care what their color, their education, their background, their country. We become makers. Yeah. We become bladesmiths, and like, that has a great thing we have in common. We can talk about that. We don't have to be at odds about it. You know, everybody has the same 24 hours. Yeah. Everybody has the same amount of time, and everybody has the same circumstance of you're going to die. What are you going to do before that? Yep. You know, so we can argue over stuff that's in the past. We could deal with the present and hopefully have a better future by working on the things that we have in common. We have some really beautiful things in common.
We really do.
Artists, writers, philosophers, it's all, whatever you want to call it. But like, even in politics, it's the same two wings, the same bird.
The same bird.
It's the same. Right wing, left wing, same bird. Just get over it, and then you can be happy with your life if you realize.
You really do. You become, if people would turn the TVs off, they turn the news off. Yeah, I truly believe people would just get along.
Oh,
because there's not that voice every day telling you to hate that person or kill that person or you should think this. You just become a community. Yeah. You become a group of people that get along.
As someone like my experience in getting kind of famous making knives, and then in the History Channel, and people recognizing you. I am not better than anyone, but no one is better than me either. That's right. And there's a peace in that. Like, I don't have to do what they're doing in knife making to be recognized or well known. What I'm doing seems to be working just fine. And the way I think about it, or how I dress crazy when I go to shows and I have fun. I might wear a kilt and shave my head into a mohawk, or I might wear a paisley suit. You know, I want to dress like Prince. I really want that raspberry beret suit that's blue with the clouds on it, and I probably should get it and wear it to Blade Show one year.
I think you should do it this year.
Yeah, if I should. It's not.
Be kinda cool.
There's not really anything in between me except I don't know. It's not that much. I should get one.
You should get you one.
That'd be pretty dope.
It would
But
be
I'm gonna
good.
get a pair of shoes and paint them gold.
Do it.
I'm gonna just take my dress shoes and paint them gold. I gotta wear gold shoes. Did you see the Trump sneakers?
I did.
I was listening to him.
Were they Nikes or something, like gold Nikes?
I think so. Yeah, he said we did really good on it, and one pair sold for $450,000. That's amazing. I was like, I like the way he's talking about.
I do too.
And all the sneaker pimps are like loving on that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I got the Trump shoes, and yeah, I paid whatever they were.
The
when
best
they
shoes.
popped out.
The best shoes.
$450,000 for a pair of sneakers. You crazy?
I love it. It is a lot of fun.
It is fun, but
It is
like
fun.
that's the spice of life. All
It
this
is.
crazy stuff, you know.
I know. If you can't laugh, if you can't laugh along with it, I don't know. You're just missing out. Because it is a blast.
You gotta
Enjoy it.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy. You gotta enjoy it because you don't know. Everyone's under an illusion about their existence on Earth. They're under an illusion on the amount of time they may or may not have. And here's how you know it, because people go, well, when I retire, I'm going to bloop, bloop, bloop. I'm like,
Oh, you're not.
I don't think so. I think you better do it now.
Yeah.
I think you better do that now. Take that trip, spend that money,
Yep.
get that motorcycle, learn how to make a knife.
Do it.
Go and enjoy this
So true.
because it's super short. You know, we're not living an elven existence. And I always think about, like, what would you do? Like, well, for my first 475 years, you know, I played in the woods and shot arrows every day, actually. I'm pretty good at shooting arrows after 475 years. And it's just like, then you growed up? Well, then I began to grow up. It's just kind of funny, you know. It's like, I like them elves, you know.
Yeah.
They could die, but they wouldn't get sick and they wouldn't get old. And there's like, and you know, when you're reading Lord of the Rings, it's talking about Gandalf. Gandalf don't even know how old he is.
I know.
The elves are going like, oh, Gandalf, when Mithrandir was around before elves. Yeah, he was. So it's kind of funny.
Cattle dogs.
Cattle
Becoming
dogs.
dog, like making
Sharks.
friends. The
Velociraptor.
velociraptor.
I thought I was getting a puppy, but what I actually got was a velociraptor.
It's very true.
Yeah.
About 4 of those in my house. They're fun. You know, how did, so I haven't met Tiger Lily, but I've got to hang out with Tristan. How did that happen? I don't.
Well, me and Shelly got married.
Yeah, I know.
and
But
then-
you somehow you, and I'm not saying you, somehow those kids are dang good knife makers.
I didn't pressure
But
him
how?
into doing it.
That's what Tristan
You know,
said.
I think you can't.
But God, that's like,
Yeah.
I mean, props to you, man, because that don't happen. It just
You
doesn't
know,
happen.
like let's parallel it with sports for a moment, right?
All right.
So the highest paid people at a college, university, is the coach of the football team, and that's an American thing, and it is what it is. So when you're a young person and you go out there and you play sports, you win the lottery before you win. You know, you get on a pro team, maybe. You know, and if you're on a pro team, this guy I know, John Welburn. He was on for a couple of years. He goes, you don't have a long lifespan on that. You're on for a couple of years and then you're out, and then the next guy's on. You know, or any of this stuff, and it's super rare, super complicated. I don't know what all the details are, but kudos to the athletes who earned the position of pro football, basketball, baseball, you know, whatever it is, soccer. But that is a sport, and that is great. It's entertainment, you know. And I did play sports, and I remember I had this friend. He was like, "Oh, you got to do that. You got to get a scholarship." He was like, "You ain't getting a scholarship unless you're playing in your sleep, you know."
Yep.
Like you're golfing until your hands bleed, like Tiger Woods. Like that, you don't get good unless you're always doing it all the time. So for me in bladesmithing, I'll just use my point. I spent a good 40,000 hours up to now just still studying it and learning it and making it. And you know where I feel like I'm at? the beginning, and that's a good place to be. Because if you're at the end, that's where you are.
That's where you are.
Yeah, at the end. I'm at the beginning still. With my kids, I didn't pressure them into doing it. I just said, well, you want to? Well, here it is. Tristan, he was out there in the shop. He's like 8. I could hear the press going, nyerp, nyerp, nyerp. I was like, what you making? Sword. He had a fence post from a chain link fence, crunching it down. He's like, we need to weld a ring on this right here. I was like, okay. Weld a ring on it, wrapped it with duct tape, sword. But I did tell him, I was like, I was worried. The press, you can get your hands in. Yeah. The hammer seems like it'd be more dangerous, but I didn't think it was more dangerous. So I was like, use that instead. So they had free access to anything they wanted to in there. And he was just doing it because he was a maker. He's an artist. He's drawing and making stuff. And, he'd make stuff from time to time. And with either one of them, I didn't know, and they always had the option to do other jobs. So with Tristan, I would say, if you have an opportunity to take a job so that you learn, don't worry about if it pays anything, even if it doesn't pay anything, but you want to learn it, do it. So he went to the career school. He did culinary arts, brick masonry, CAD design. He took all kind of stuff. He was a national honor student at the career school. So he did technically go to school, but it was a career school.
Yeah.
And Tiger Lily didn't do any of that. When she was 17, she says, I'm going to Alaska, and you can't do nothing about it. So she did. We were building that little tiny house up there, and she was just like, I'm going to Alaska. I'm like, oh, okay. What are you going to do? I'm going to live with Adam and Haley. Okay, what are you going to do? I'm going to make knives with them. Because she had made some knives, and then they came to visit here. I don't remember when it was. It was early when we had first moved here, and she made a knife with Haley, and then she had it. She was like, I'm doing this.
That's
and
awesome.
She made a knife and she sold it, and she made a knife and she sold it. She's like, well, this is cool because I can sell them, and people wanted it because they were great. Whether she was a woman or, it didn't matter. It was like the work was great. Yeah. It was good work. And so now it's even better. And so she's still making knives and being married and eventually soon having a baby, and that's cool. And she'll maybe make knives still. I don't know. And Tristan does fantastical stuff that I don't even know how to do, like that wakizashi. That's a piece that people don't know what they're looking at still. It hasn't sold. And I told him, I said, you don't bring the price down. It was like, I think he had it like $2,500. I said, now make it $3,500. Yeah. I said, and every year you keep it, just add another $1,000 to it, because eventually somebody's going to go, wow, I want that, And it's frustrating when you make things and people don't know what it is, or you're not reaching the audience.
Yeah, that's
very frustrating because I experienced that too. I'd make crazy stuff and I'm like, damn, why couldn't I just be somebody else? Why couldn't I just have been okay at school? Why couldn't I have been a football fan? Those are really dumb things for me to say, because that's not who I am. That's not who God made me. God made me to make knives and be an artist, and that's what I'm going to do. And he made me to. Now I'm pretty good at sharing information, and I don't like to say teach, but it's teaching. And I like to do that. I like to see people go, ooh, I want to make knives. Not because they want to make knives and sell knives, just because they want to do it because they want to do it. Because that's like the hardest part of the whole thing, is being a professional at it and getting paid to do it.
Yep. Almost
no one gets paid to be a bass fisherman.
Yep.
Do you know how much a bass boat costs?
Yep.
They're like $100,000 now.
They are.
$100,000, and you got to have a $60,000 truck to pull it.
Oh, no. $120,000.
Yeah, 100.
You can't do it with the F-150 no more.
So, like, it gets deep. So you got, people just bass fishing on the lake with a nice boat. You're deep. You're into it as much as a house.
Yeah.
And what does bass sell for when you go to sell it at the market? It's not legal. You can't sell it. It's a game fish.
Yeah. It's not even good to eat.
Yeah, it doesn't even taste great. People do it because they love it. Same thing with golfing. Millions of people golf. There's 100 professional golfers on the earth.
Yeah.
You think out of millions of golfers you're going to be a professional? I don't think so. Yeah. But you can have fun.
Sure.
You can enjoy it. So, when we go to Atlanta Blade Show, that room is filled with enthusiasts and makers, and some incredible makers, and some people who took their thing into a company like like Microtech did, or I'm trying to do. People who are prolific like Josh, and Josh will make knives for him, and he'll make knives for me. And it's wonderful. Like it's a blessing to me to know Josh and Kyle, and but it's like so many people show up and they go, I didn't sell anything. I says, yeah, but you're a professional accountant and you make $300,000 a year, and you like don't come here and like be mad you didn't sell a knife. Come here and make relationships and enjoy stuff. Like if I had another source of income, I'd come to the show and I would give a knife away. I'd give knives away. I would keep them. I'd make them for me because I make stuff sometimes. I always tell people, like, make one you really like. Don't sell that. Keep that. Keep it or give it to somebody. Don't. It's not easy to sell them.
Do you find it in the blade world, like in my world, like when me and my wife, we decided we wanted to do photography full time.
Yeah.
This is 15 years ago. We were not met with much enthusiasm of that choice.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was very much, you can't make a living doing that.
The normies.
It's very discouraging. I mean, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can be very discouraging. But do you find that a lot in?
Oh yeah.
Is it just kind of across the board?
One of the things that used to.
Because I just go, you can make a living doing whatever you want.
You can.
I mean, you can do anything.
A person that has the will and a rake can make $100, $200-$300 a day. In fact, just raking the yard, and that's a fact. So if you want to do it, you'll do it. I remember when I was first starting to do this, and it was like I'll go back to high school. This is really funny. Jason is going to go on to be a professional blacksmith after he leaves high school. The whole crowd laughed.
Yeah.
Laughter. Laugh now. You laughing now? You ain't laughing now. I don't go to the high school reunion. Hey, we're at high school reunion. No.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever come back to that. I don't ever want to put up with that nonsense again.
Burnt that bridge.
Yeah, it's like sailed the ship to another land, and I'm there, and the land of no normies.
Yeah.
I think people are going about their struggle, and everybody is struggling, and everyone, I believe, is actually suffering. And sometimes people think that they're all by themselves. They're angry and they're driving their car, so they're not conscious enough to realize, like, you could hurt somebody driving like that. You could kill somebody driving like that. They don't care about themselves. Or either they're narcissistic, unconscious. I don't know what you call it, but it's a culture where right now we have the largest narcissistic, unconscious culture that I've ever experienced, or anyone else for that matter. And you see it on the road or in the line. We were at a nice show and stayed in this Omni Hotel in Texas. And there's a Starbucks in the hotel, and the hotel has free coffee if you're a guest. And the coffee at the hotel is really good. Starbucks coffee is really not good at all. It's bad. Yeah. But a line of people waiting to get a Starbucks coffee. And I was like, hey, what are you waiting in line for? Oh, get a coffee. I was like, hotel has free coffee. Oh. And they went and got the free coffee from the hotel. I don't stand in lines. I'm not standing in a line. It ain't that good. Yeah. I don't care what the food is or whatever, it's not that good. Even like almost, it's like, figure out another way. You are in a river, and the river has rapids and rocks and sticks and debris and hang-ups. Now figure out what you want to be in the river and realize you're not the rock and you ain't the river. But some people think they're the rock, and some people think they're the river, but they're not either one. I'm just a piece of trash floating down it. So I'm a leaf, like I'm a leaf, and I could be like, I'm going to make this rock move, and you'll stay there, and then the water will break you down, and then you're not traveling down the river. You don't get maybe you're a maple leaf with those little seeds on it. Like maybe you get down the river and you get planted somewhere. It's just an idea, but that's the mentality. I don't have to be angry at nobody except for myself. I don't have to be frustrated with nobody except for myself. It's like that. But nobody owes me nothing. I'm not owed anything. A lot of these ideas is like my shop burned down. Yeah. That can happen to anybody. I'm not crying about it. build another shop. You know, got to get up and do it again. You know, so that's like with anything. I meet veterans. You know, they'll be missing an arm or leg, and I'll say, "Hey, man, did you see the shark that got that?" And they'll go, "I never thought about saying that before." They're like, I could sit here and say, like, "Oh no, I lost it in, over there." And I was like, I could say a shark got it.
Yeah.
So I said it to a guy just recently, and he showed me. He goes, "Dude, I'm an extra in a movie," and he's got like this shark prop, and it's like bit his leg off, and I'm like, "That's pretty cool."
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's like all these things, these traumas or whatever. And I don't even know how we got on this subject, but the funny thing is this goes by quick, so you better get involved and enjoy it, and don't get hung up on all the little things, the snags. You know, I was like, people die when you get older. That's terrible, and it sucks. You know, I was thinking about, you want to call somebody and they're dead. You know, they're passed on there with Jesus, I hope. I was like, I want to call my grandma. You know, I was like, I can't call her. You know, I was like, I want to go see my grandpa. But, you know, it's okay. You have them for a limited time, and they're treasures, you know. So you just move on, and you find new wise people and then maybe you're the wise person. Now you're in trouble.
Then you're in big trouble.
Yeah. You're the wise person, huh? Yeah. Now what you going to do?
You know, the whole thing about only having so much time. It's like, I really believe that time is the only thing that separates us from God. From that dimension, when you have that whole, like, we are confined here by time. We have a certain amount of it. And what's the only difference between eternity and here?
Oh, there's another weird one. I got another real weird one for you. So we look at that anvil, and according to the laws of physics and chemistry, the anvil has more space in it than it has electrons, neutrons, protons, you know, atoms. There's more space there than there is metal. So we're not real yet.
Right.
And that's really what's wild. You know, like Shelley was telling me about her cousin was worried about something in the book of Revelation. I was like, I'm not, because it says that things will be revealed. Like when the Lord shows up, there's no battle of good and evil. Like he just shows up and they're like, it's over. Yeah. You know, it's done. That's it. There's no, who can fight against God? Nobody's can fight against God. No. There's no good versus evil. Good wins all the time. It doesn't win in your time.
Right.
It doesn't win in your space,
right.
But it wins ultimately. And we are made out of a material that is temporary, but there's something else that we're made out of that is permanent and solid. So Jesus raised from the dead. He's walking with the disciples, and they don't recognize him. And he walks through this wall, like into the building, and he didn't even go to the door. And somebody was going to see Jesus' spirit. It was like, no, Jesus is real. Yeah. This is temporary.
It's the temporary.
If I'm solid, and there's a C.S. Lewis, what's it called? Great Divorce. Yeah. And he's talking about walking on spiritual grass. And the guy's like, oh, it hurts my feet so bad. It's coming up through my feet. It's cutting my feet. It's like, well, you ain't real yet. You're getting real, but that's real grass, you know, and that's a real river. And this is the spiritual river and the spiritual. And we just keep going up across them hill. By the time we get on the other side of the hill, you'll be real. Yeah. But you ain't real yet. You're just here, and you're thinking all this stuff is real. You're thinking this is all solid and permanent. You think that stone has been there. You know, those pyramids have been there for thousands of years. Nobody know how old they are. Nobody knows how they made them. They're not even real comparatively to what you are becoming on your journey as this eternal being. Right. Where right now you're stuck there, but eventually you could walk through it because you're solid, and it's not. It's not. It's the opposite. It's like the opposite. You know. We're just, we're on this. It's kind of funny. You know, they tell you don't eat red meat and don't eat butter and da 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 da. Well, I do the opposite, and we just eat red meat and butter. I'm like, I feel better. I feel smarter. I sleep all night. I got more energy. I'm like, what have they been lying to me my whole life? Of course they have. Yeah. Eat vegetables. They're trying to kill you all the time. But that's another podcast, I guess. I know. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I know this has been going, but I like that you're doing this. This is cool.
Yeah.
Podcasts are great because you get to hear the story is what people want. When people come to, are you going to keep calling it Ridge Runner?
Yeah.
And there's a connotation about Ridge Runner and rhododendrons.
Yeah.
And David Crockett.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great character from the Alamo.
He was.
Not Jim Bowie, but David Crockett certainly was.
He was a cool.
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool guy.
And Daniel Boone. These guys are from this area. Yeah. And but running the ridges is when you're lucky enough to be riding your motorcycle and you can find one of those roads that are right up on top and you get to see both sides.
Yep.
I can climb my mountain on that ridge. I can see the Blue Ridge and I can see the Cumberlands. I can see all the way into Virginia. I can see all the way to North Carolina from the top of my mountain.
Yep.
Not supposed to, but I know.
Yeah.
They say you're not supposed to, but I can see it. And that's kind of cool, man. That's a
cool.
real blessing. But yeah, the Ridge Runner, I like that. And you're connecting the makers with the something that. No, this is my view of knife.
Yeah.
Okay. Knife making is created in a quantum space. In your mind is that quantum hyperdimensional 11 12 dimensional space where you can see the use of it, the make of it, the idea in every different stage of its development. And the second you take it out of there and you put it on paper, now it's just 2-dimensional. Then you make it 3-dimensional, and then you make it usable, and then people go, wow, this is cool. It's not just a thing you're exchanging a couple bucks for.
Exactly.
Knives are worth more than the money always.
Well, Jesus said, if you don't have a sword, go sell your cloak and buy one.
Sell your cloak and buy one.
I'm doing a sticker that I'm going to include in every single box. And that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
I just love that. Like, Jesus thought swords were really important.
It was really a big deal.
It was a really big deal. That's what I was talking to Tristan about. I was like, it's like, can you imagine living like 1,000 years ago and a sword is all you got? Like, that's like the method of protection or the method of whatever. And it's like, that is so important. And so it's like stands between you here and not here type thing. It's really important. It's just so, I love it.
Weird thing about weapons, edged weapons, far more civilized. Because, if whatever terrible warfare may be engaged is the best strategy is engaging the enemies as far away as you can see before you don't even have to see them. So let's push this button, or let's use this drone and it flies over there. Or let's send these guys, we don't even know them, let's send them over there. They do that all the time. But you have this spear, and that other guy has a spear.
It's very personal.
And whatever reason our countries don't like each other. Maybe you got the water hole and I got to get that water hole, and you're in my way. And we're just soldiers. We're just soldiers. And so they'll battle each other for that water hole. It's like, that's very personal. It's crazy because you'd say it's uncivilized. It might be more violent, but it's way more civilized because now you know what's at risk. You know what's at stake. You know what you're losing.
You know the cost?
This is the cost. It's all measured, and there it is.
Is it worth it or not?
Yeah. I don't want to get in a knife fight. I'm just telling you right now.
Dude, that'd be a bad way to go. I'd just be... Man, a guy sent me a picture of his finger yesterday. Like, he texted me, he's like, man, I really messed up. And he was pulling a knife out of the sheath or something and cut. It went to the bone in his thumb.
I've been stabbed and cut and eviscerated and severed arteries, and I've seen the spray come out of my own body before.
Do you carry a tourniquet around with you?
I do. I have a kit with a tourniquet. I always think
pretty necessary.
Yeah, I got a whole med kit I usually carry with me. That's the thing. Right? So I used to play this game with Doug. And Doug, I would practice collie with Doug, and he's just beating your knuckles. It's unpleasant.
Yeah.
I told him, what, Doug, I figured out a technique I could defeat your knife technique anytime I want to, and you won't be able to even do anything about it. He goes, oh, yeah, I win. I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you when. I'll let you know when. Okay. So I remember coming to him. He's sitting there. We were on the show, and I was like, hey, you like Coke? Yeah. I set the Coke in front of him, and I just go, tick, 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 you know, all up and down like neck, you know, with my thumb like knife, 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 like dead. He's like, oh, you got me that one time. I was like, yeah. Like, I could say it the next day. I was like, hey, Doug, you want it's Coke? Oh yeah, thank you. I finally got real pissed off about it. He got tired of that. You know, he's like, I'm gonna go to my car and get a sword and kill you. I was like, I think Will said, you don't even have a car here. You didn't. Somebody brought you here. Kind of funny. But yeah, it'd be pretty gruesome.
We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah, man. I'm always down. It's a fun thing.
It'd
be fun, me and you and Josh and Kyle, because we have had some shenanigans together.
I have heard a little bit of those. I'm like, sound like something I do.
It's a fun.
But so knife-wise, so we're getting ready to hit Blade Show.
Blade Show.
What are you excited about? Because this will come out before Blade Show.
I don't know, bro.
You excited about anything?
I'm working on a integral case folder that's made in the U.S. I'm going to work on those with a company. I've got another company I've started with the emphasis on made here, even if it's made by hand, even if it costs more. I don't care. That's what I really want. I'd like to do, and that's just it costs what it costs. You know what I mean? And doing some crazy stuff. I hope to have a good couple of 10 pieces, custom pieces for Blade Show, and something really wild, like some crazy. I got one sword I'm going to definitely bring, and then we'll have the one that me and the Windburn, Dale and Mark, and Tristan designed it, and we're going to bring that one too. So we actually have 2 of them. We did, and then I got another thing I'm thinking I'm going to get finished. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And what else? I got classes coming up. I got class with Grace Horn in October. Scissors. Will Stelter is going to be here next month making a 2-handed integral chopper.
Oh my God.
That'll be a cool thing.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, that's a class. If you want to take a class, that's one you want to take. We'll have a blast. Will's a good dude. You know, he's another guy's gunslinger, knife maker, you know, follower of Jesus, you know, so pretty cool. I got some other projects. Hopefully, you know, I'm looking forward to. I want to have more teachers come teach here in the school. You know, Makers Forward Studio, not class school teach.
Yeah.
Class school teach makes people run.
Yeah.
Makers Forward Studio, then you're a part of it. You know, now you're part of the action. And
this is part of like where you live now. It's just so cool.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah,
it's just beautiful. I was driving over from North Carolina. It's about 2.5 today. It was like 3 hours.
It was
got
far,
stuck behind some box truck doing 30 miles an hour from Boone to here.
Yeah.
And but man, Watauga Lake and man, it's just beautiful. And it's like you cross through 2 countries to get here.
You do.
Now I think about like how Europe, how Europe is really not that big, and it's so different.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the same way, like from my house to here, I cross over like 2 mountain ranges, it seems. And
it is.
And it is just, that's the best drive.
Yeah, because you live like foothills. You got to cross all the Blue Ridge to come here.
It's the best. It's honestly, it's been because I've been up here, I guess, every week for the last couple weeks. Or, you know, at least once a week. And it's become like the highlight of my week.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it's just like the best, like the best time.
I want to make it more fun. You know, one of my goals is to have little Airbnb cabins, if not here on my mountain, somewhere close where people can, when they come, they can stay in these cabins and enjoy it. And
get you a big sign that says Night Mountain.
Maybe.
Like out of
Turtle Mountain.
You know, Turtle Mountain.
Turtle Mountain. It's like when I first came here, we found box turtles everywhere I was turned.
Really?
Daisy was bringing a box turtle. I'd find them, and you know, they're real determined to go in a certain direction this time of year, and they're going that way.
I'd like to know what that is. Do we even know? Is that what it is? It's just like some mating thing?
I will say it, but I'll say it off air. They're looking for something.
They're looking for something.
It's worth as much as gold.
Yeah.
I want that. I'm going this way. That's the way I'm going. That's what we're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's always a male turtle going that way.
Really?
It's not, the females are
That's funny.
Well, we'll just hang out here.
Oh, it's just like men.
Yeah, we're staying.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for
good chatting with you.
Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that again. I did the limp thing.
Hard style, like this.
Yeah. There we go. So we'll do it again, And I'm looking forward to Blade Show. It's going to be good.
Cuchillos. That means knives.
Knives.
Yeah.
What language?
Spanish.
Oh, look at that.
The pin is mightier than the sword.
I tell you what, you do have like the English accent down.
Yeah.
The British accent.
I like to just.
You're good with accents.
I can have fun with it.
The laddie thing. You should just adopt that as your own.
What?
Just start calling people lad.
Laddie.
Laddie.
Yeah.
The Irish thing.
Yeah, I liked. Boy, I miss that old Steve Irwin. Crikey.
Man, he was cool.
He was cool.
His
yeah.
son's pretty cool.
His kids are cool too.
He's like, it's kind of like you. It's like it's very obviously his kids.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
cool.
Pretty funny. Hey, thanks.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.